So that's it. I'm going to go and have a look at the car on what has, I have to say, turned into a thoroughly pleasant afternoon. As you can maybe see behind me, the sun is out, so always a win. No, it's not suddenly become night time. I'm just driving through a tunnel. Just wanted to kind of say before I carry on too much with this video, yeah, the Alpine dealer through in Glasgow is part of the Arnold Clark network, or is attached to the Arnold Clark Renault Dacia garage. I've got to give a shout out to Jean, who was working in the servicing area, the servicing department today. The customer service I've had has been excellent. Really can't fault them at all. Being kept up to date in terms of my fuel pump order, in terms of kind of costings, great customer service. So yeah, just shout out to Jean if you're watching this at Arnold Clark. Definitely don't want to come across as a happy clapper for the Alpine brand. It's not, I'm not paid by Alpine in any way. I'm not a brand ambassador or anything like that. Try to be as impartial as I can with these. Just genuinely on this occasion, can't find anything to pick fault with. Come back to me tomorrow, obviously, when I'm convalescing from open wallet surgery, but we'll see how we get on tomorrow and once the work has been carried out. But yeah, we'll just continue with our road test at the moment. So one thing we have learned quite quickly is that the A110 is quite at home in heavy rush hour traffic. Not quite the start to a road test that I was aiming for, but yes, it's yeah, it's a comfortable enough place to be. It's got the same soft suspension setup in this pure model, base model, whatever you want to call it now, standard A110, as in the GT that I normally have. Slightly down in horsepower, 252 brake here in the base version. Loath to kind of use the term base version because there isn't an awful lot to choose between the standard car and the GT and the S. The GT and the S models do have a slightly greater power output, 300 to 252, so about 48 horsepower, 50 horsepower up. But in terms of the kind of handling characteristics and stuff, not a massive difference, but we'll press on. So for those that have watched the other video, this car that we're in today, it's a demonstrator from Arnold Clark in Glasgow. It's the, again I say, loath to use the term base, the standard A110 is probably the best way to describe it. 252 horsepower. Yeah, got this on loan while the A110 GT is in for its service. Currently cruising on one of the more anonymous bits of Scottish motorway, so not a best place to kind of test the A110's powers. These cars are really more at home on B roads and twisty bits of road, but it's also here to show you that it is a perfectly comfortable motorway cruiser as well. This is again, I've got the one-piece Seatbelt racing seats, similar to the S version of the car. Standard one comes with these seats as well. If you want to adjust the height of the seat, you do need to get the spanners out, which, you know, is just a kind of one-time deal. It's not overly strenuous work. They're adjustable forward and back, and the steering wheel's pretty much adjustable anywhere you want. So it is a very easy car to get comfortable in. There's no issues with that. You could quite comfortably do a long journey in one of these. It is noticeable as well that, although I'm kind of basing a lot of this on the GT, because this is the pure version, doesn't have the fully adjustable comfort seats, etc. The car is marginally lighter, so that 48 horsepower deficit that it's got over the S and GT models isn't really that noticeable. It's actually, the sort of lift that you get from it until you're getting to the higher end. There's a marginal difference. I think it's like 0.3 of a second, 4.2 as opposed to 4.5 in this car in a sprint to 60. So really, as I say, a minimal difference. As with all current variants of the A110, this is powered by a 1.8 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. In this particular car, they're pushing out 252 brake horsepower. This being the 2024 version, also comes with Android Auto and various other things that realistically should be in a car of this price point in this day and age. Everything post 2022 had access to Android Auto. Pre 2022 cars, you're going to have to make use of the MySpin app, which was dreadful, to be honest. A lot of A110 owners that have got pre-2022 cars have found a lot of ingenious solutions in terms of mountings and various ways to kind of interact with their phone. But yeah, it was a timely and seemingly minor upgrade, but one that was long overdue for the cars. beautiful stretches of anonymous British motorway ahead of us. Making our way up just to a bit of a twisty route. The car, as you can hear, still makes a good sound. This one, it's hard to tell if it is fitted with the sport exhaust or not. Certainly will still give you the pops and bangs as you can maybe hear in the exhaust there. It's just less ready to do it than some of the other versions of this car that I've driven. As you can maybe hear, this car's got the Focal audio stereo upgrade, which, you know, I have driven both versions. Let me turn that down a bit. Having driven the cars with both the standard stereo and the Focal premium stereo, yeah, it does definitely certainly make a difference. Not a massive difference. It's not going to be terrible if you have the standard stereo system. It's going to be down to yourself as an individual if it's something you want to price in. Something I spend a lot of time in my car, so for me, having the best version of the in-car stereo was a price option, but definitely you wouldn't be lost without it. The one thing I comment on in every version of this car that I've driven is its size. It's a very small car, which does make it very, very easy to place on the road. Obviously, given that we're on a stretch of particularly anonymous motorway, not really a major drama, but for B roads, particularly twisty bits of road, having driven some bigger cars, some bigger sports cars and things, there's always that worry in the back of your mind that it's, you know, something coming the other way is going to just drift ever so slightly over. Definitely can completely relax in this because of the size of the car. It can be placed in the lane quite easily. That engine doesn't sound like an awful lot of power, but what has to be borne in mind is that just under 1100 kilos, this car weighs virtually nothing. It's a third of a ton lighter than a Porsche Cayman, and a Porsche Cayman isn't exactly a heavy car. This is effectively, it's been covered in other reviews, this car is effectively a Porsche Cayman with a grand piano and weight removed. The whole shell is made of bonded and riveted aluminium, so it's lightweight, it's easy to replace, and from bitter experience, a lot cheaper to replace than anything with a carbon fibre shell. Anybody that knows the background of that one will attest. Damage to a carbon fibre shell can prove terminal for a lot of cars, particularly with the insurance costs and the cost of repairs in this day and age. So it is quite reassuring to know that being sort of light aluminium, it is replaceable. And that weight advantage does kind of tend to lend itself in other areas as well. Because the car is light, it doesn't tend to go through tyres as quickly. This car only runs on 17 or 18 inch wheels, so the tyres are not £1 million to replace. A lot of the parts in here are sourced from Renault. It's not a Renault underneath. The car shell is created bespoke, but for things like the keys, the key batteries, these are Renault derived parts. I say the engine, it's the same one that you find in the Megane RS, so again it's not going to kind of bankrupt you in terms of replacing items. Even for a car that only puts out 250 horsepower, it still does make a really good sound as well. One of the main things you probably want to know about the A110 is the general cost. These start from around £50,000 new. You can buy pre-owned cars looking on Auto Trader. The cheapest one going on Auto Trader just now at the moment is a 2021 Legend, which is going for about 35. Depending on which variant, which spec you're going to, these cars, top end is going to be the A110R and A110R Le Mans, in which case you're moving into the realms of six figures. The car is obviously lighter again, still at the same power output, but sub 1,000 kilos at pretty much in terms of a lot of them, running at the carbon fibre wheels, so around £120,000. The GT and the R specs anywhere between around 65, sorry, GT and S specs even, anywhere between 25, I'm having a nightmare. The GT and S specs will run you anywhere between around 60 to 76,000, 77,000 pounds, depending on specs and options as well. But it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it sounds like a lot of money to spend, but for what you're getting for that money, a bespoke sports car which, as you've probably seen, if you're watching this, you've probably seen a lot of the reviews for these cars. These cars get rave reviews, and absolutely there's a reason for that. These things are the perfect cars to be hooning around B roads, country roads. If you want to track it, the S or the R versions are very, very capable track cars and will keep up with a lot of Porsches on their day. So yeah, there's one of these for everyone. So that noise you can hear, because the car is mid-engine, that's cooling fans. The old tricolor does really stand out as well in the black. So as I mentioned on the drive there, these are the one-piece Seatbelt seats. They are very, very comfortable. You have 3 height adjustments there. The designer of this car was 6'7" though, so don't worry about height. Height should not be an issue. You will be able to fit in here. Big fan of this floating console design in the middle. You have your central binnacle there, and then a functional iPad-sized, or small iPad-sized center display there as well. It is usable, but Android Auto, as I say, a big upgrade. For little extras there, you've got the black A in the middle. If you want a blue one, 75 quid. Depending on the spec that you choose as well, you'll see that this lovely carbon. You can either have it in this matte finish that you have here, or some of the cars will have that in a gloss finish. It's one that you can kind of pick yourself. It does have the volume stock from a 2005 Clio. It's something that a few people pick up on, but to be honest, it works, so why would you bother to design a new one? Very hard to make out, but the speakers, even the speakers, are dedicated to saving weight. It's almost a bamboo style material that's making up the speakers, but yeah, it's another thing that takes off weight. Also a big fan of the model designation on the door there. So the A110, A110R, A110 GT, you have this foot plate, tells you what you're in. One of the other optional extras you can get is this aluminium foot plate. You do also get aluminium pedals on the other side. Because of the space being at a premium, there being no glove box, etc., some people might want to stick something in the footwell, but if you do want to rest your legs, definitely another worthy option. I did say it wasn't going to be entirely a happy clapper, so there are a couple of little minor niggles with the car. The first one of these is the boot space, or front fruit base. I did say it wasn't going to be an entirely positive video, so there are one or two very minor niggles that got to find a negative in the car somewhere. Definitely can't be faulted on the driving dynamics of it. It's an absolutely tremendous car to drive, even in the pure form, the base form here. It's still an absolutely tremendous car, and if you've got 50 grand to spend on one, I would absolutely recommend it. But like I say, for a couple of minor niggles. The first one is going to be here. It's the front boot, the fruit, if you want to call it that. The storage space in this car is actually deceptive. Although, as I say, we don't actually have a glove box, etc., there is a front boot there. So this is the front boot for the car. It doesn't look massive, but you will get 2 decent sized flight bags in here. So more than enough for a weekend away, sufficient for a weekend. If you were going to go longer term, you probably would need something slightly larger, but yeah, certainly from that point of view, there is enough room. It is fairly shallow, and the reason for that is that the petrol tank is underneath here. The car is fueled from the front. As you can see, again, in another weight saving option, another way that they've saved weight is there's no fuel cap, it's just this little rubber patch there. But yeah, I say there is a usable space. In terms of the minor niggle that I was going to mention, it's the fact that the release for this is on the passenger side. Obviously, in their natural habitat, these cars, being French designed and built in France and Dieppe, they are left-hand drive normally, but this is a faff, particularly if you're in a hurry. You do have to get out of the car. You do have to come round to the other side because there is no release on the driver's side of the car. It's a minor niggle. It's something you do live with, but I say I do have to find a criticism somewhere, so that's the main one for me. There are a couple of little design cues which tell you this is based on the original 1973 rally car. That car was rear engine rather than mid engine, so you have things like these little sort of indentations on the wings here. We also have one on the roof that you can just about make up. These are obviously based on the original car. You do have a rear boot as well. It's here. It's just this little push button underneath. Again, it's not massive, but it is deceptive. You have recesses on either side of the car, both on the left and the right. Designed for racing helmets. It's designed, you can fit a couple of helmets in there, or you could get a couple of bags in there. This one here is obviously document pouches, safety pack, spare wheels, all that, spare wheel, entire inflation kit, etc. Not a spare wheel, because obviously it doesn't come with a spare wheel. But yeah, a few odds and ends. So there is enough storage space in this car to make it usable. What I would say is don't be putting ice cream in the back here. As you can maybe hear from the kind of whirring and noises in there, that is where the engine is. The car is mid-engine, so anything that it does go in the boot, it can get a little bit hot. So yeah, like I say, particularly on a summer's day, don't be bringing your ice cream there. Another good example of the lightweight construction here. It's just an aluminium bonnet. There's no insulation, anything like that, anything that's going to add weight. It's purely just going to be the bonnet. It does mean if it gets damaged though that it is, as I said earlier on, easier and cheaper to replace. There is no getting away from the fact that the looks of this car are Marmite. It's one of the cars, it's one of the very few cars I've seen that actually does look a lot better in person than it does seem to come across in pictures and videos. I think a particular styling feature is these quad headlights. They do look tremendous when the car's in motion. When it's coming up behind you, it is a very, very distinctive silhouette. But some people love the look, some people absolutely hate it. I personally, I think the best angle for this car is going to be side on. The proportions of this car side on, they just work in any colour. I have to say, I'm coming round to the black. It's not a colour I went with myself. I went with, as you've seen in the videos, the standard Alpine blue. But yeah, I think the black works as well. An easy way to identify whether it's a pre or post 2022 car is by the model designation on the back there. You can see that this one is the standard A110. Pre-2022 cars, they had just Alpine on the back there. They didn't have the A110 GT S or R branding on the back, so that's something to look out for. It's been covered in other videos, particularly the one I did where I was reviewing having a look at the Lotus Emira as a potential replacement or rival to the A110. Is that the A110 here doesn't need any spoilers or active aero or anything like that, or any other fripperies, and the reason for that is that it actually has a diffuser, which you can just about make out in the video. The bottom of this car is almost entirely flat, and that's because of the diffuser. All of the air is channeled through these diffusers, which are not just cosmetic, they actually do work. And having just the single exhaust in the back there does look tremendous as well. Being said, the S version of this car does have the aero pack. It does come with a rear wing and a front splitter just on the front of the car there. It will, however, sting you. It's something like £6,000 if you want that aero kit on your car, if you're going to spec it up. If, however, you're going to go for the S version, or which is the only one that it comes on as an option, then yeah, it's definitely worth looking into because it does actually add a good look. Now a little styling cue, got little intakes in the rear windows there. The only other minor niggle I can find with this car is trying to get access to the rear of the car, to get access to the engine. Obviously there's not going to be an awful lot of time where you're going to try and access the engine, but access the engine is actually through 3 bolts which are in the car. There's one in the middle there, one in this side, one in there. So you have to unscrew these 3 bolts, which is not a massively difficult job, but unscrewing the 3 bolts then allows you to lift up this engine cover. You've then obviously got the Alpine cover underneath, so you just definitely need to take that off. However, as I say, it is a 1.84 pot, so there's not really going to be a massive reason to do that unless it's just to kind of top up oils and things like that. But ordinarily that's going to get done during your service. The standard cars and the GT cars typically come with Pilot Sport 4s. If you're driving the S version, you can get the Pilot Sport 4s, or if you want to spring for the extra cost, you can go for the Cup 2 tyres as well. The A110R and A110R Le Mans, the 2 sort of top of the line versions, will come with the Cup 2s as standard. Another handy feature, depending on what spec you go for, as you see, reversing cameras, parking sensors, etc. Again, pretty standard fare, but still useful all the same. Going old school here with the single zone climate control. Powered by a 7-speed Getrag gearbox there. Very Ferrari style buttons there, drive, neutral, reverse. No option for an auto is for a manual in this car, but yeah, it's not a great loss, to be honest. You will have a number of car purists that will tell you that the option not to have a manual gearbox is some crime against humanity. However, particularly with electrification, you know, automatic gearboxes are coming there. You know, it's just a fact of life. And as auto boxes go, the box in this car is tremendous. It's really, really good. Particularly with the sport button activated, it does lift really, really well. The designers of the car actually said that had they gone for a manual, by the time they put the manual gear stick in, linkages, etc., it actually would have added weight to the car. There's also the cost implication, because this is a fairly low volume sports car. It didn't really make sense for them to go for a manual, as they particularly moving towards automatics as we are. So if you do want one, you're getting it in an automatic, so yeah, suck it up if you want anything else. Make it a satisfyingly chunky button on the steering wheel. This is your normal mode. You have the standard dials. A single press of your sport button, you do get a slightly different layout, and this is just tightens up the throttle response, just makes the steering that little bit quicker. A long press on the button gives you access to your track mode. You can see there you have your track mode. Turns off a lot of the stability control and stuff. Gives you these handy little bars along either side. Yeah, really, really good. So should you buy one of these cars? If you can afford it? Yes. Thanks very much for watching. This has been Going Places 110. I've been Paul. We'll see you for the next one.